Hello there. Welcome in to a Tuesday edition of the show. So glad to have you. Whether you're listening on your radio, online at extrasports1300.com, or through the widely available and 100% free Extra Sports 1300 app, I do indeed appreciate it. A veritable cornucopia of sports topics coming your way over the course of the next 3 hours, and I'd love to get your opinion on all of them. 719-247-1313. That is the text and phone line for your convenience. You can also hit me up on X. I am at Gingerly Tweets. I say veritable cornucopia. It's a lot of basketball. But that's not normally what this time of year is about, but with NBA free agency, with the Olympics, it's become kind of the sport that's dominated the news cycle as of late. And locally, there has been a little bit more on Jamal Murray's status with the Denver Nuggets. Now, before free agency began or shortly thereafter, I theorized that there could be any number of reasons why Jamal Murray has not signed an extension yet with the Denver Nuggets, as Brian Windhorst of ESPN just kind of threw out there on a free agent show on ESPN. Why hasn't he signed? But as the days go by, some of those potential reasons fall away. There's nothing keeping Jamal Murray from signing an extension today. The new league year has begun. All of these trades and signings and everything, they've happened. The idea that maybe he's going to formulate his contract to allow for the signing of somebody else, that's out the window, right? They made their move in Dario Saric. They didn't need to adjust Jamal Murray's contract in order to do that. Still a little bit fuzzy on the whole CBA thing, on whether if he makes an all-star team or all-NBA, is he immediately able to get a bigger max extension? Because normally it doesn't come down to the wire like this, right? It's kind of a unique case where you have a guy who hasn't made an all-star game or all-NBA, but you think is maybe capable. But the last year he can do it is his walk year. These other guys, it seems like they get, all-NBA, and then they go into like the following offseason and then they could sign it. Well, Jamal Murray doesn't have that, right? The max is what the max is for a guy who's never made an all-star game or all-NBA team. There's been a report from Ryan Blackburn said that while the Nuggets have a framework for a max deal in place, it's not a full-fledged max, fully guaranteed type contract. And if that's true, then I think what we have is a bit of a situation here. Because there is no doubt that when Jamal Murray is right, he is the second most important player on the Denver Nuggets. You saw what he and Jokic did last season, and they don't win a title without Jamal Murray. The 2 years prior to that are all the proof you need. Without Jamal Murray, this team isn't even sniffing a championship. And this team, without hesitation, signed him to that first extension after his rookie deal. Despite a lot of people on the outside saying, is this a good idea? This guy is coming off of a terrible Game 7. And the Nuggets signed him up without hesitation. But since he's signed that contract, right, think of the last few years. He was great in the bubble. Then he was hurt. Then he was still hurt. Then they won a title. And then whatever you want to call what this playoff run was. I think that the Nuggets are right in being a little hesitant here with just once again, without hesitation, signing him up to a full guaranteed max contract. You got to look at the body of work. And more importantly than that, you got to project into the future. Here, if you have a track record of being not right one way or another, 3 of the last 5 years, you have to weigh that. And you have to wonder going forward how many playoff runs Jamal Murray is going to be right for. And you heard Michael Malone and Calvin Booth in unison almost challenge Jamal Murray to take better care of himself. Now, does that go so far as to say that he is not preventing injuries well enough? Maybe, but at the very least, when he gets hurt, even if him getting hurt is not his fault, right? Freak occurrence, injuries happen type of thing. Wasn't he supposed to come back 2 years ago? And the team kind of put it on him towards the end of that season and said, we're going to abide by what Jamal says. They didn't really protect him and say, oh, we're going to decide when he's ready to play. They put it on him. And I don't know if Jamal Murray liked that. But there was a real expectation that Jamal Murray was going to be back 2 years ago, the year before the championship run. And he wasn't ready. And the Nuggets got bounced by Steph Curry and the Warriors. Now, maybe you could argue that sitting out for that entire season put him in a better place for the championship run. Maybe. But if all of the talk around this offseason for the Denver Nuggets has been about, you know, how hamstrung financially they are, right? This second apron has come into effect. And Josh Kroenke talked about it in the postseason press conference about how this team was assembled under a different set of rules, laying the foundation for what you're seeing now, a team unwilling to go in this second luxury tax threshold in order to retain Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and making only one move this offseason to bring in Dario Saric. He was laying the groundwork that my dad's not going, and I don't mean that to, you know, I don't mean offense by this, but that it is his dad. Kroenke Sports Enterprises is not willing to do what you saw the Celtics do. They have a contract to Michael Porter that every day looks more and more like an albatross just because I don't think that Michael Porter's ever going to live up to that contract. And I'm not so sure that last year was the absolute best we will see of Michael Porter. And not to go too far, you know, down a different road here, but look at it. What you got from Michael Porter was pretty good. Right? He was healthy, played pretty much every game, knocked down threes. He was good. He just wasn't that contract good. And you saw the rumors about them trying to move on from Michael Porter and get Paul George. Draft picks were the reason that deal fell apart, but how tradable do you think that Michael Porter contract is? I think they are right in having some concerns with locking up Jamal Murray again, or at least want to take a beat. At least want to see if there's a negotiation. That's essentially, I think, what the Nuggets want. They want to negotiate this. So many of these max extensions, it's like it's done. Right? They're eligible, you sign it, boom, move on. Right? Very few of these max contracts actually feel like they're up to negotiation. I suppose we just got one with the Clippers and Paul George, who could have gone a max extension, and the Clippers weren't willing to give him that. But most of the time, it's just like, time for player X to get his max extension, boom, he gets it. I think in Jamal Murray's case, the Nuggets are right to see if there's some wiggle room here in order to create some flexibility, or to be a little bit more worst case scenario, an out. I think they're right to do this. But in doing this, you are going to irritate Jamal Murray. It's just the nature of it. And if they came to him with anything less than a full-fledged guaranteed max contract, I could see why Jamal Murray is like, I'm not signing that. In addition to the criticism that couldn't be viewed as anything other than criticism. I mean, Calvin Booth and Michael Malone, they tried their best, to massage it and try to make it not seem, it was blatant criticism. They were calling him out. They were challenging him, which, by the way, they were right to do. But all that doesn't mean there aren't hurt feelings here. I think Jamal Murray, in his inability to string together multiple healthy seasons, is a bigger issue for the Denver Nuggets than how much they pay Michael Porter. I do, because I think Michael Porter this past year did his job to his fullest extent. I don't think Jamal Murray did. He wasn't healthy for stretches. Need I remind you what happened in Game 2 against the Minnesota Timberwolves in his little outburst? Look, I don't think any of this is reason to think that Jamal Murray's days in Denver are numbered. But this is not just as simple as a rubber stamp and a couple of signatures. Because the Nuggets, because the rules shifted like they did on the Denver Nuggets, they have to figure out ways, or at least they feel like they have to figure out ways. I'm kind of on board with the idea that I don't know if you could fully rely on Jamal Murray year in and year out. But if you can rely on him, then boy, you'd like him on your team. This is not a referendum on Jamal Murray, the player, in any way, shape, or form. But I think the Nuggets are right, given this climate, and you could push back against the idea that they have to create flexibility, that they have to be scared of the second apron. That's a different issue. The reality is they are scared of the second apron. The reality is they are not in a great financial position to navigate their way around the second luxury tax apron or to stay under it with the contracts they have handed out. And the worst case scenario for the Denver Nuggets is what happened 3 years ago. And Jamal Murray has a catastrophic injury. And now we're 3, 4, maybe going on 5 years removed from the Nuggets winning an NBA title. I think this is right now a negotiation. And in negotiations, feelings get hurt. And it becomes a little bit of a spat between the two parties. And I think that may be kind of what's going on here. I don't think I would bet any other way than Jamal Murray's a Denver Nugget this season. I mean, trading it, they're not going to trade him. And I wouldn't even bet right now that his extension isn't done by the beginning of the season. But what we are getting right now is a little bit of a look, perhaps, into a relationship that has gotten a little tenuous. And if we have to take sides in this, I kind of take the Nuggets side. When I take everything into account, I think the Nuggets are right to do this. And it's not that they don't want him. It's that they're trying to win, and they're coming off of a very, let's call it what it is, embarrassing exit from the postseason. With this second luxury tax apron, there are a lot of things they have to consider. Before just blindly signing Jamal Murray up to another max extension. I don't think they're wrong in doing this, but I also understand why Jamal Murray could be a little bit miffed by the whole thing. But I would remind him that they signed him to the first extension coming off of that bad Game 7 against Portland. They did not trade him when he got hurt. They didn't push him to come back from injury that season after he tore his ACL. They've treated him pretty well. But there are some things right now where the Nuggets, now that they're a champion, now that they're in this elite class and the expectation is they continue to contend for titles, you got to be a little bit more ruthless. You got to be a little bit more cold. You got to look at it more from a business side. The Rockies can sign up Charlie Blackmon to a lifetime contract. It's not going to make any difference. They'll pay for it tenfold because we being Coloradans go to the games. They're never going to be in a pinch to where, they can't afford a big name free agent because big name free agents, like the list goes on. Like the Rockies can just do this. Health concerns, age, it doesn't matter because it's about box office and it's about jersey sales and it's about, some weird loyalty to a player that is far past his prime. But with the Denver Nuggets, they're not in that position. They're not the Colorado Rockies. And by the way, for years, you wanted the Nuggets to act more like the Avs and the Broncos than the Rockies. Right? So yes, Jamal Murray, they don't win a title without him. They need him to win another one. But they need him right, and they need to know that they can count on him. So reports are once the Olympics are over, that is when this thing will get settled, reportedly. We'll see. Take your thoughts, 719-247-1313. Just getting going on a Tuesday edition of the show. Switchbacks midfielder, Zach Sandy, my guest after this. Welcome back, Drive Time Sports on your home for Colorado Springs Switchback Soccer Extra Sports 1300. It was an amazing night at Widener Field on the 4th of July, and not just because of the fireworks after the match, but my guest today brought some fireworks of his own. His first goal of the season proved to be the winner for the Colorado Springs Switchbacks as they continue to climb up the USL Championship standings. Zach Zandy is my guest. Zach, pleasure to have you. How are you?
Great. Thank you for having
me. I know it's been a minute for you scoring goals, but how happy were you to get one on the board?
Yeah, I mean, at least extremely important goal as well. On top of that, to help us get 3 points for the July game. So it was a really great night overall, and it's really great to get the 3 points for all the fans that showed out. It was a really incredible atmosphere at the stadium.
I talked with Switchback Sporting Director Stephen Hogan after the match, and you and him go way back. And he, I don't know if he called it a Zach Zandy special, but he did say that he's seen you score goals like that quite a bit. What about that goal is so familiar to him when it comes to you?
Sure, honestly, but I think it's I was on the front foot, and it was I'm not sure if Ronaldo got the assist or if it was a deflection, but I was just anticipating it and was quick to it. So some of that is familiar, but I was just happy to score my first goal again.
And you have those three guys up top in Damas and Yosuke and Malik, and they're having terrific seasons. I mean, you throw yourself into the mix, and you got. I mean, that's just if all you guys are working in tandem. I mean, that you got to feel like you got to be one of the more dangerous teams in the league.
Yeah, definitely. I think
Oh, Zach, did I lose you? Oh, Zach, are you back? Where you were cutting out there? You're cutting out a little bit, Zach. Do I have you? No. Bummer. See if he calls back there. Yeah, I was cutting out a little bit there. I was getting the gist of what he was saying, but it just started to cut out too bad. But here he is. Zach, do I have you now?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, you were cutting out pretty bad there.
But back to what we played opponent attack. I think there are a lot of ways to break down teams, and it's if we're all firing like you said, we're really dangerous.
Zach Zandy, Switchbacks midfielder, my guest, got his first goal of the season in helping the Switchbacks to a win. I know that the result in New Mexico was disappointing. I know that there's a history between the two clubs, so that's maybe the last team that you wanted to have your unbeaten streak come to an end, but you guys have bounced back in grand fashion with a couple of really quality wins. I mean, how much different are you guys right now than maybe you were to start this season?
I think we're just very committed as a team. We have a great unity within the locker room. And, even when we lost 5 games in a row, I think everyone, just put their head down and stayed putting in the work. And I think that's come to fruition with us, winning these games. But, we're only halfway through the season, so there's still a long way to go.
Yeah, we're sitting here right at the midway point of the 2024 season. So up next, you have a couple of road matches, couple of home matches, followed by a couple road matches here. So I guess what's the message with two? Do you look at both of these as kind of one group, like, hey, we're heading out on the road, we want to get this many points, or is it just the next match and then you'll discuss what your goals are for the following match?
At the moment, it's the next match that's up. We're not looking too far ahead. We're focused on the game that's, the immediate next one. And I think that's been the mentality that since this time we've been winning. So we're just continuing with that, focusing on the most immediate game.
Yeah, and that one will be this Saturday, and you could hear it right here on Extra Sports 1300. I suppose I buried the lead because there's been much ado about your new do, Zach. So tell us what went in, what was the reason for the change, and now you realize that you can never go back.
People have been saying to me, but I'm not sure if I can have the hair all year round. But I did it last year when I really liked the look, and so I thought, why not do it again? And I guess it's brought me some good luck.
Yeah. So what happens first? That you go back to your normal hair color, or somebody else matches you on your team?
You'll have to convince someone else on the team.
All right, I'll figure it out, and I think I'll be at training tomorrow, so I'll do some scouting and maybe try to do some convincing and see if we can't get more people on board, because hey, it works. So find the next guy that's about ready to score a goal and get him to change up his hair color. I got to say, playing on Thursday, it's a relatively short turnaround for you guys, not the shortest turnaround you've certainly had this season, but what is it? Is it nice to kind of be in the midst of a little bit longer of a break leading into this next one?
I think, we had a 4-day break, and everyone kind of was able to go do their own things. We had training today and everyone was refocused, and, we're ready for Birmingham this Saturday.
Yeah, it will be a tremendous matchup. You can't completely compare conferences, but in terms of point total results, should be a closely matched contest, and we'll see if the Switchbacks can keep it going. One last thing to serve my own selfish needs. I am going next month to the terrific city of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I don't want to look like a tourist, even though I'm hitting up all the tourist spots. What can I do while I'm out there to look like I belong in Philly?
It's a great question. If you want a cheesesteak, the tourist places are Pat's and Gino's, so go to those. My personal favorite is Sandro's. It's a little bit outside of the city, but the best. Another good place is Gino's Pizzeria. I haven't had the cheesecake, but I've heard, or cheesesteak, but I've heard it's amazing.
All right, that's good, because all I've heard, and with Paul George signing with the Sixers and stuff, he appeared at Gino's and people were roasting him. So not that my arrival in Philadelphia will nearly match Paul George's, but I don't want people to be like, oh, there's the tourist, even though that is indeed what I am. So I appreciate the advice, Zach, and congratulations on the goal. It was a beauty, and congratulations on what you guys are doing right now, because you guys are rolling, and hopefully you can keep it rolling down in Alabama this weekend.
So much for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. That is Zach Zandy, Switchbacks midfielder. First goal of the season, first goal in a calendar year in the Switchbacks victory on Thursday night against FC Tulsa. You know, Roland and I, if you listen to broadcasts, we bring this up all the time. And Zach, I disconnected with Zach, so this is not me trying to, you know, puff him up on the way out. Just the best dude. The culture with this Switchbacks team is really good because of the quality, not just of talent, but of just the quality of dudes they have on their team. And Zach Zandy's right up there with the best of them. And of course, went to Villanova, and so had to get that. Yeah, I've learned no Genos. The real ones, as the kids say, no, not Genos. If you're going to Philly for cheesesteaks. So, and that's my number one reason for going to Philadelphia next month. I'm like, I feel like a cheesesteak. I'm going to just book a flight to Philadelphia randomly. So, Switchbacks this Saturday in Birmingham. You could hear the match at 5:30 Mountain Time right here on Extra Sports 1300. Then it's another road match, and then finally back on the 26th to play Las Vegas Lights FC. That'll be the Christmas in July match. Much fun is being planned as we speak for that one, so might as well jump on the tickets now, switchbacksfc.com. Coming up next, even though the calendar right now is being dominated by basketball, maybe a little soccer as well, Spain just knocking off France. A 16-year-old scored for them today. A 16-year-old. It's crazy. Anyway, but soon it will be football season, and it will consume everything. And today was kind of our first step towards that as Big 12 started their media day. And yes, a certain football outfit in Boulder, Colorado was a big topic of conversation. We'll get into that next here on Extra Sports 1300. The best pro rodeo cowboys and cowgirls from the U.S., Canada, and Mexico are right now here in Colorado Springs for the NFR Open at the Pikes Peak or Bust Rodeo. And with over $1 million in payouts, they'll be riding to win. This is where champions and careers are made. Get your tickets now, pikespeakorbust.org. It started today. So, time running out literally as we go along. Today marked the start of the lead up to football season, if I can put it that way, with media days for all the conferences starting up this week. It feels like college football is getting closer. There's kind of these mile markers, right? So I don't even know, like the transfer portals and all that. Is Juju Lewis decided yet? When is he supposed to decide whether he's going to CU or not? So I don't base it on the transfer portal because I'm not entirely sure what dates that spans. But media days is certainly the start of that lead up. Then this year we have a special additional date, which is the release of NCAA college football, which today, if you haven't seen the news, Arch Manning has reversed course and he will be in the game, which is like kind of EA Sports slogan. Arch Manning, he's in the game. So Arch Manning will be in college football 25, and that releases next week. So that's another little mile marker. But the college football season will be here before you know it. And I think that the Big 12, not just, for local purposes, like it'd be easy for me to say the two conferences that I'm most interested are the Big 12 and the Mountain West. And that while that is not entirely untrue, I think you could also look at the Big 12 as one of the more interesting conferences. Could you say that? I think still the SEC takes that mantle because they're the epicenter of college football to begin with. And now you're adding Texas and Oklahoma. So the intrigue surrounding the SEC trumps the Big 12. But I look at the Big 12 this year and I say that's a more interesting conference than the Big 10 is. And the Big Ten's adding a bunch of teams. It's not to say that there's no intrigue with the Big Ten. But this Big 12 conference is really interesting. And Brett Yormark, the commissioner, touched on part of that reason. This conference he calls it deep. We could probably sit here and have a discussion about whether the Big 12 is deeper than the SEC or the Big 10. I think it's more wide open than those other conferences are. I'll say that. And there are more teams that could be near the top and contending for a Big 12 title than there are in the SEC or the Big 10. So and I guess that's the definition of deeper, but I just look at the quality of teams and say, yeah, the Big 10 and the SEC still has that over the Big 12. But I said last week that I thought the Buffs, despite being picked, 11th, I could see finishing top 6, top 5. Every day that I go through it, I come up with a different order of finish. I feel pretty good about Utah at the top. I think Kansas State's going to be right there. So it's maybe the top two I'm pretty solidified in. I know CU is going to outpace what the media poll says. But is it 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 3? I think there's a lot. I think probably you could fairly say that CU has the highest variance level. If we say that, I think that the Big 12 media voted the Buffs to their floor. 11th. I think the ceiling, I would probably put, I don't see how they finish above K-State and Utah and really Oklahoma State. So maybe it's like anywhere from 4 to 11 they could finish. And I think it's just, once again, there's a lot of unknown. The stuff you like, right? Best quarterback in the conference, best overall football player in the conference, and Travis Hunter. Shedeur has weapons. His offensive line is going to be better. How much better remains to be seen. And then I am contractually obligated to mention Shiloh whenever I mention Shedeur. Probably waited too long. You still have Shiloh Sanders. But there's still a lot of unknown. You got to see how it comes together in a new environment, playing a lot of new teams. But this is a conference that could be pretty topsy-turvy. It could get a little wacky. It has the opportunity to look, and these other leagues, I haven't seen their preseason polls, but I'll tell you the Big 12 is probably the one that will look least like the preseason poll once it's all said and done. So there is a lot of parity. And I think it's partly what fuels the optimism in Boulder, in the state of Colorado, in the state of Utah, Kansas, Texas. I think there are a lot of fan bases that look at this conference because, let's face it, they're not as good as the Big Ten. They're not as good as the SEC. They don't have those teams. They don't have a Georgia. They don't have, a Michigan and Ohio State. Where you look at it and you're like, yeah, Utah's really good and probably the class of the conference. Are they unbeatable? I think this is going to be a really interesting year. This first year of the newly made Big 12. The topic, as you might imagine, came up quite a bit today in regards to Deion Sanders. But I notice, and they're just getting started, right? We haven't even, all the quotes coming out of Big 12 media days are not, they're going to start to surface over the next 24 hours, and you'll see video clips and things like that. From what I have seen and heard, the tone around the Big 12 is a little bit different than the Pac-12 when it comes to Deion Sanders in Colorado. And here's what I mean by this. Just take this quote. This is from Texas Tech coach Joey McGuire. Now, McGuire, you should know, has an affinity for that family, having coached one of Deion's sons before. So maybe he's not the best litmus test for it, but Coach McGuire said Colorado is going to be really good. They've added a lot of talent, and they do have one of the best QBs in the nation. Mike Gundy, the Oklahoma State head coach, somebody said, I have to ask you this question. What do you think about going up against Coach Prime? And Mike Gundy made a joke that he thought that he was going to ask him who he was voting for in November. Like this was going to be some controversial question that was about to be asked. Everything I have seen is that it's not as combative right now. And I think there are a lot of different reasons for it. I think one is that Colorado has shown some things through year one to garner a little bit more respect, right? Last year, it was they're getting all of this attention with no results. And now they're getting all of this attention, which probably, to be honest, is a little bit less than last year. It's a little bit less. But they have some results. The college football world now knows about Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter and Shiloh Sanders and this CU team. And so there's a little bit more respect. But I certainly don't think Coach Prime has been as big of a story in college football as he was 1 year ago. So that helps, right? It doesn't get on your nerves if you're an opposing coach that nobody's talking about you. But I also, and this was something I said when Deion was doing all of this transfer portal stuff and he was getting chastised by other coaches across the country, I said, just wait till they all start doing it. Just wait till all these coaches look at what Deion Sanders is doing and say, well, we don't need to go as far as he's going. But I mean, look at the turnaround, the improvement that happened year over year by basically replacing the entire team. Now, if we could take a fifth of that or a third of that, we could really improve our team year over year. And I knew this was going to happen because in a lot of ways, Deion Sanders was being a pioneer when it came to utilization of the transfer portal. Once it became normalized a bit, once people got used to it, it wasn't so taboo to talk about the transfer portal and to replace your players and all that kind of stuff. Then other teams would start doing it and they wouldn't be as critical of the Colorado Buffaloes. And I think that's part of it as well. They see what's going on. They're taking some of it and applying it to their program. And maybe tempers aren't quite as high. Oregon, USC, some of these other schools probably were pretty irked because they have for a long time been powers of college football and all they're being asked about is Deion Sanders. With all due respect, Kansas State, Texas Tech, even Oklahoma State don't really have that pedigree. They can't be as indignant about these questions. So I think it's all of that kind of all factors in on why the tone out of Big 12 media days feels a little bit different. Doesn't feel as divisive. But I do think the thing that you take away if you're a Buffs fan is the respect factor of the Big 12 respects what CU is doing, respects who CU is, and understands that they are a viable threat to them on any given Saturday. Whereas many teams in the Pac-12 did not, even after the start of the Buff season last year, look at them in that way. And they proved it, to be fair. But I think there's a little bit more respect being placed on the name of the Colorado Buffaloes and Coach Prime after one season. Oklahoma State, as I mentioned, certainly one of the teams that you probably throw into the mix as being a contender to win the Big 12. A lot of that has to do with Ollie Gordon, their stud running back, who just last week or a week or two ago was got in trouble for under suspicion of drunk driving. Now, in the past, that would be an automatic suspension. right? You got to teach these kids a lesson. Suspend them. Mike Gundy was asked about it today and went a very different route. Welcome in Drive Time Sports on this Tuesday. Reminder, you could watch the show live on a daily basis if you follow us on social media, whether it be Facebook, X, or Instagram, the handle, or YouTube. I keep forgetting to mention the YouTube. At XTRA Sports 1300. 1300 for 1300 is where you go, and you can watch the show on a daily basis if you so choose. Team USA out in Vegas getting ready for the Paris Olympics, as you are well aware by now. Joel Embiid, kind of a curious addition to Team USA. Now, he has American citizenship, so there's no shenanigans going on here. But he's certainly taken a little bit of heat recently that he didn't go and play for Cameroon or even France. And he's playing for America, which would be, I don't know, the country you'd at least associate with Joel Embiid. I just think that Joel Embiid is one of those NBA guys who he gets knocked all the time, just for everything, right? Some of it warranted, maybe a lot of it warranted. No, not so much. Like, look, Team USA has Nikola Jokic in their own group. Victor Wembanyama is potentially on the horizon. Giannis Antetokounmpo has qualified for the Olympics. And with all due respect, Bam Adebayo is probably not enough to handle those guys. So, hey, if he's eligible to play for the United States, I don't have a problem with it. If I were as a Sixers fan, I'd have a little bit of a problem with it because the guy wasn't healthy for us, and now he's going to play for Team USA. But we will get Joel Embiid. Game 1, first game for Team USA will be against Serbia. And we will get Joel Embiid against Nikola Jokic. And Joel Embiid will have to play. Or he will play. Right? We will get a matchup between Nikola Jokic and Joel Embiid that we don't get as much as we think we should because of, certain circumstances. Well, Troy Rank, I recognize Troy Rank's voice when he asked this question. So obviously he's asking from a local perspective. He asked about, if Joel Embiid was looking forward to playing Nikola Jokic in the Olympics, on the Olympic stage, an even bigger stage for the last two MVPs, the two best centers in basketball, and two rivals in a lot of ways. I won't play the audio because it wasn't any good. I'll just tell you that the quote that's making the rounds is Joel Embiid saying, "I don't care about Jokic." That's a grabby quote there, isn't it? I don't care about Jokic. But you have to be fair. He continued on that he cares about the national team. So when you put it in its proper context and you don't just see Joel Embiid says, "I don't care about Jokic," then I think you can more accurately judge what he's saying here. And I think what he is saying is exactly what he needs to say. Right? Maybe you can put it a better way. Maybe instead of saying, "I don't care about Jokic," you could just go straight into, "I'm only focused on the national team," because you should put this kind of stuff aside. Right? That's what this stage is about. It doesn't matter what was going on during the NBA season, who beat who in the playoffs, who's a rival to who smack talked who. You're all on the same team now, right? Team USA. And then when you're going up against someone from another country that you may be rivals with, you don't make it about you. I promise you it would be much worse for Joel Embiid had he launched into this whole diatribe about how he's looking forward to playing Nikola Jokic because he wants to prove that he deserved the MVP and da-da-da-da-da. Now, he may believe that stuff. He may not. But you don't make it about yourself. This is supposed to be, and it's kind of why I keep going back to Carmelo Anthony and what playing for Team USA did for him. It should make you less selfish. Not completely unselfish. There's some guys going for their own personal glory, and I'll let you decide who is who. But it should make you less selfish, more unselfish, right? It shouldn't be about a matchup against Wemby or a matchup against Giannis or Jokic. It should be about what business Team USA has to get done. So you take the quote in its entirety and you say that's what Joel Embiid should say. He shouldn't make this about another matchup between he and Jokic. I'll do that. You'll do that. He doesn't need to do that. That's not what this is about. That's Sixers Nuggets, not Serbia, United States. Now, I will play a bit of armchair psychologist here. And his initial reaction to Troy Rank's question is a little bit his feelings about the entire debate between him and Jokic, right? Which both players over the last couple of years have said they're over it. They're tired of being compared to one another. They're tired of the vitriol. They're tired of how toxic the conversation has gotten. That emotion, that feeling came through on his initial reaction, which is I don't care about Jokic. It's not I don't care about Jokic because I don't like him, or I don't care about Jokic because I hate the guy. It's just I've answered enough Jokic questions, and we already said that this whole thing was toxic and we were over it and we didn't want to be a part of it anymore. And now you're bringing it up on this stage. So there is some real emotion behind it. But when you take the entirety of the quote, you say, that's how Joel Embiid should be. It shouldn't be about him. Let NBC make it about Embiid versus Jokic. Because it very well might be. I don't know where else you would go. Right? That's the story. It's the first match, first game of group play. Right? This is not about advancing or whatever. It's about taking the first step towards advancing. But that game's going to be Embiid versus Jokic. You know it is. And it should be. That's the most interesting thing about Serbia and the United States matchup is Embiid versus Jokic because of the reasons I just mentioned that we don't see it as much as we should have. But I want to take what Joel Embiid said and kind of turn it around. Because here you have Joel Embiid at least saying that he's putting any personal feelings about going up against Jokic, even if it's just merely competition. Right? I think I'm the best big man in the world. He thinks he's the best big man in the world. We're going to find out. That kind of stuff. It doesn't even have to be, anything personal. But let me turn around to the fan side of it. And this is bigger than Embiid. Because if you are a Nuggets fan, have you looked at this roster? It is a veritable who's who of Nuggets villains. Embiid, LeBron, Anthony Davis. It's hard to harbor any ill will, even fan ill will towards Steph Curry. But remember, he went sleepy night on the Nuggets a couple of years ago. Devin Booker, things got quite contentious. Anthony Edwards, Kevin Durant. There are a lot of guys on Team USA that have been antagonists to Nikola Jokic and the Denver Nuggets. Joel Embiid is sitting there saying that stuff is not for this stage. It's about Team USA and winning a gold medal. That's his number one priority. Is it yours as a fan? And I'll tell you, this is a safe space. It's fine. Go ahead and admit it. Because I've seen it. I've seen it on social media. There are some Nuggets fans who are, at the very least, conflicted about the whole thing. It's a little bit weird. And I've been saying it for the last couple of weeks. It's going to be a little bit weird to be seeing the most revered athlete in Colorado sports, probably history outside of number 7, going against Team USA, led in part by the guy that a couple of guys that Nuggets fans have spent the last 3 years absolutely piling on any moment they get. I think maybe the right place for a Nuggets fan to be is hope that Nikola Jokic puts up 30, 20, and 15, and Team USA wins. It's okay to feel conflicted about Nikola Jokic backing down Joel Embiid in the paint. It's okay to kind of want Nikola Jokic to get a bucket in that situation. The good thing is you don't have to wish good things for anyone else on Serbia. It's just Jokic. So if Nuggets fans can get a 30, 20, and 15, and he absolutely roasts Joel Embiid, but Team USA wins, then I think that might be the best case scenario. And it sounds weird, but let's be honest. How much do you invest your personal time, your fandom, into the Nuggets versus Team USA? Right? Your roots are a bit deeper with the Denver Nuggets or whatever your favorite basketball team is. You spend more time with them. You invest more in them. You care more. You want Team USA to win the gold. Nobody wants Team USA to belly flop in Paris. But maybe game 1, maybe one player on Serbia, it's okay to be a little happy, especially with who he's going up against. But you don't want Serbia to win. Like, that's extreme, right? Nobody wants Serbia to win. You want America to win. You just want Jokic to maybe get his against Joel Embiid en route to a U.S. victory. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on Joel Embiid's comments and how are you feeling? How will you be watching that first game between Serbia and America? Is Nikola Jokic now the enemy and you don't want him to even individually perform well? Or you're like, big Jokic game still ends in defeat. But it's just funny. Over the last 4 years, during one Olympic cycle, how many of these guys on Team USA have the Nuggets ran up against? And how, at times, ugly did those matchups get? And you're just supposed to, for the good of the country, flip a switch and say, go Joel Embiid, go LeBron James. Nobody is nobody's daddy in the Olympics. It is an interesting switch that we are asked to flip every 4 years, but we do it. 719-247-1313. Speaking of this Team USA, they're very good. Very good team. But I don't think we need to go to extremes to talk about this team. And I think too many outlets on the national media landscape have gone too far when trying to put into context how good this team is. We'll talk about that next here on Extra Sports 1300. NFR Open, Pikes Peak or Bust Rodeo is underway. The best cowboys and cowgirls from North America all together in Colorado Springs competing for over $1 million in payouts. This is one of those events that happen in Colorado Springs on a yearly basis that you really need to check out. Even if you're not a rodeo fan, it's such a big event and it's an elite event. It's just kind of one of those bucket list type items, and it would be my pleasure to be the one to send you there. I have a pair of tickets for Saturday afternoon. If the Norris Penrose Event Center sounds like a place you'd like to be Saturday afternoon, I can help with that. 719-247-1313 is the number. Text rodeo and your name, and the 13th texter will get a pair of tickets to this Saturday matinee of the NFR Open this Saturday. So Team USA right now getting ready for the Olympics, and some news was made last night because Cooper Flagg, who is going to play at Duke and will be the number one pick in next year's draft without a doubt, had himself a very good evening competing against Team USA with the U.S. select team. So the hype is real on this guy. And go ahead and start tanking now. If you don't have championship aspirations, just go ahead and do what you got to do. Make sure you're going to get Cooper Flagg. But it's all the more impressive what Cooper Flagg was able to do last night, given how good this Team USA is. And hasn't been talked about a lot, but is really starting to be discussed right now. This team is absolutely stacked. And so, naturally, your inclination is, well, how good are they compared to other Olympic teams? Now, I think we go too far because there is no way. There's no way that there is a comparison between this team and the Dream Team. And people need to stop. Stop clickbaiting people. This team is not the Dream Team. Okay? And I know, Larry and Magic, where they were at in their career, Christian Laettner was on there. I understand. I'm telling you, this team is not the Dream Team. They're not as good as the Dream Team. Now, the part of the reason for that is because Steph, Durant, LeBron are all at the tail end of their career. If they were all at the height of their powers, and somehow you could transport, healthy Joel Embiid, and this Anthony Edwards, if you could get the best prime LeBron, prime Curry, prime Durant, plus these younger guys, now we can talk about on a talent level whether this stacks up to the Dream Team. Right? Because that would be a Dream Team. But think about it. You have the names. You have the names that you need in order to have a modern day Dream Team. But Embiid hurt, Kawhi hurt, Steph older, LeBron oldest, Kevin Durant older. So this can't be really on par with the dream team. It's just not. So let's take it a step down. And kind of where, as I was looking back through some past Olympic teams, I feel like the only teams that are better than this one are the ones that have names. Dream Team, Redeem Team. Right? Redeem Team was the Avengers all came together. That team was stacked. That team, by the way, if just refreshing your memory, at a time when some of these guys were closer to the height of their powers, Chris Paul, LeBron, Melo, Dwight Howard, Kobe was on that team, Dwayne Wade, Bosch. That was the Beijing Olympic team. That team, I think, is better than this one. But I think I would have this team third. Team very good. Because even though I say that Steph and LeBron and KD aren't at the height of their powers, they're still all very good. Like, they're not washed. None of those guys are. In fact, last night, the word out of that scrimmage was that LeBron was the best player on the floor. And apparently they do something where the select team says, who's the best player on Team USA? And they said LeBron. Which is great news if you're a Laker fan, because I know that even though LeBron spends $1 million a year on his body and came off of a very good year, you're still waiting for it, right? You're still, just like Patriot fans were, you're waiting for the drop-off because you know it's going to catch you by surprise. Just all of a sudden, you're going to see LeBron and you're going to be like, this doesn't look like LeBron. Right? Like Peyton Manning Super Bowl 50 season. Right? It goes fast and it goes suddenly. So I know if you're a Laker fan that you just like these well check-ins with LeBron every once in a while. Okay, is he still LeBron? Last night he was arguably the best player on the court. I guess inarguably, because they voted and said he was the best. So Steph, Kevin Durant, LeBron, the elder statesmen of the group, are not at the height of their powers, but they're still among the best players in the league. And on a team with those players, there's one that believes that he is actually the best of them all, the number one option. Who would say such a thing? I think you could guess who said it, even if you didn't see the quote. I will let you know who that is and talk a little bit about that next here on Extra Sports 1300. This has quickly turned into Team USA Hour. I'm down for it. I'm looking forward to it. Olympics start on the 26th. We will have as much coverage as we possibly can for you. We will have updates every hour from Westwood One, from Paris. I'll be talking about the day's events on this show, and I may be doing it from a location that fits the occasion. Not Paris. Maybe the next best thing. So look out for that here in just a couple weeks' time. So just talked about the talent that is on this team, and I think only the Redeem Team and the Dream Team, and it's not because they are named, that's just a fun coincidence, are the only two Team USAs that I think are better than this one. This one's absolutely stacked. I mean, think about just like the two deep at every. I know that's more of a football thing, but like you got Steph and you got Drew Holiday and you got Booker and you got Edwards and you got Kawhi and you got Durant and you got LeBron and you got I mean, it's. I think Jaylen Brown probably deserves to be on this team. He's a different position than Tyrese Halliburton, so it's hard to say Halliburton's the guy. If you're just taking straight up the best guys. And you took into account what they did this past season. It feels kind of weird that Jaylen Brown's not on the team. It almost feels like he and Jason Tatum should be attached at the hip. Everywhere one of them goes, the other one should follow. But it's hard to quarrel with this team. And when you get a team with this much talent, you also get a team with egos. Right? All of these guys have egos. Now, at the top of the hour, I told you what Joel Embiid said. That he doesn't care about his matchup looming with Nikola Jokic. That's about Team USA. And what Anthony Edwards said can still be construed as being about winning a gold medal. It's just he maybe feels like he is the person that will ultimately lead Team USA there.
Yeah, I just go out there and be myself, shoot my shots, play defense, and, you know, they got to fit in and play around me. That's how I feel. Yeah.
The thing about Anthony Edwards is after a while, you realize that what Nikola Jokic was doing was a bit. Giving the people what they want. Right? And it's an exaggeration of who he actually is. Yes, he is a homebody. Yes, he definitely wants to get back to Serbia as soon as he can. He loves racing horses. He is not about individual accolades more than team success. And then once everyone started kind of laughing at the whole thing and comparing him to like he's just a 9-to-5er and punching the clock, he leaned into that. Go back and watch the video that the Nuggets did for him that featured his wife congratulating him on his third MVP, and tell me he doesn't care about winning the MVP. Watch him out on the court and tell me that he's just a clock puncher and he just plays basketball because he's good at it. the guy's as fiery a competitor as there is. I think he can put it away more than other guys can. And I don't think he loves to show that when he's doing interviews. So he seems a little disinterested, but he cares, right? And after a while, it became a bit, and he was just giving the people what they want. I feel like we're getting there with Anthony Edwards. I'm not entirely sure. I obviously don't follow him on a day-to-day basis like I have Nikola Jokic, but I feel like Anthony Edwards knows what you want him to say, and he's going to say it. Because there was another clip that came out of Media Day or whatever they called it, where somebody asked him who the alpha on the team is, and he said Kevin Durant. He said Kevin Durant's his favorite player, and was gushing about Kevin Durant. I think that Anthony Edwards knows what you want from him. And he knows that you want him to sound like Kobe, to sound like Michael. And it's not him being disingenuous. I think he has a supreme belief in self. And I think he feels like he can lead the way for Team USA to win a gold. But him expressing that outwardly, I think, is a little bit of catnip, a little bit of red meat for the media and fans. I think he's doing a bit. Again, it's based on the truth. It's based on his actual feelings. But a perfect example is Kawhi Leonard. People don't understand how much of a competitor Kawhi Leonard is, even though how much time he's missed makes you call that into question, or how much a killer he is on the court. He is that. But he doesn't want to say it. And I'm sure most everybody on Team USA has similar feelings to Anthony Edwards, because what an opportunity it will be. Not only have you been deemed worthy of being on that team and playing on that stage, I mean, you have to take it a step further and I'm going to make the most of this thing. I'm going to be the star. What an opportunity for me. Now, it's not putting yourself above the team, because all these guys feel like the best course of action is to go through them. If they play at their highest level, they believe they can lead Team USA to a gold. They all want to win gold. That's the goal. They just believe that they're the best equipped to help Team USA win gold. But I think Anthony Edwards is doing a bit. I think he's caught on. I think he understands. And it's been good for him. This brand is good for him. Now he's taking a little bit of heat for it from people that are taking him seriously. I don't take him as seriously. And also, who cares? Is Anthony Edwards the best player on this team? No. Is he the guy I want Steve Kerr to put the ball in the hands of late in games if any of these games in Paris are close? No. There are better options. But why shouldn't Anthony Edwards be true to the persona, true to himself, true to the bit? Some people were really critical of him. I'm like, he knows. He knows what he's saying. He knows you'll eat it up. And he likes that. He's not the player that the U.S. should go through, although I think he could have a very big impact on the United States on the defensive end, predominantly. But come on. If we're going to say whose team is it, look at the old heads. Or at least what people would deem the old heads. Look at Bron, look at Steph, look at Kevin Durant. think about how their work lives are right now, some of the things said about them, some of the perhaps realities of their situations with their NBA teams, this might be the biggest stage that we ever see Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, and LeBron James on again. Anthony Edwards, there's still time. Anthony Davis, there's still time. Jason Tatum, there's still time. And he just got off a pretty big stage a month or so ago. If I'm looking at who I think is going to be the best players on Team USA in Paris, I look at Steph, LeBron, and KD. I think they look at this like this is a last ride of sorts, a last dance of sorts. Definitely the last time LeBron's going to play on this stage. And a decent chance that this is the last time either Steph Curry or Kevin Durant play on this stage. They're going to make the most of it. I would pick from those three guys. Anthony Edwards will have other Olympics where he may be the face of the team. What he's saying about himself now is probably going to be true in 4 years. LeBron, Steph, KD, I think are going to lead the way for this team. And to that end, this is also, and it's Anthony Edwards, but it's another player as well on this team. And they're all Team USA, right? You don't want to be too critical that you don't cover these guys in this way on this team like you would on their NBA teams. Okay, but I'm thinking about Anthony Edwards and what he says. And I'm kind of chuckling a little bit because I know he's being Anthony Edwards, but I also know that's preposterous that he's going to lead the way for Team USA. With all of these other stars, I don't see Anthony Edwards leading the way. But it is also interesting to kind of look at these players that we've talked so much about throughout the NBA season, what they are, what they aren't, and now look at them with other the best players in America. Obviously, Giannis would be in the mix, or Jokic in terms of the best players in the NBA. You know who I don't think is going to play a major role on this team? Jason Tatum. I mean, just look at it. LeBron, Durant, Kawhi. I don't know how many minutes how many meaningful minutes Jason Tatum is going to get. Everyone's going to play because they're going to demolish some teams. But all the discourse around Jason Tatum, well, just look him on Team USA. How many guys on Team USA would you say are better than Jason Tatum, or will have a bigger role on this team than Jason Tatum? Curry, Durant, Embiid, LeBron, Kawhi. And again, we're not even including arguably the two best players in the world. One plays for Greece and the other plays for Serbia. So the talk about Jason Tatum, is he the face of the league? Is he a top 5 player, top 3 player? I mean, he's barely a top 5 player on Team USA. In a sport, and to say nothing of Luka Doncic, whose team did not make it. And I'm not trying to use this time to disparage Jason Tatum, but he's a very good player, and he absolutely deserves to be on this team. But it's kind of good to see him in this context and realize, like, oh, he's not that dude. He's not leading this team. Maybe in 4 years, it will be him and Anthony Edwards. But on this team, yeah, he's down the pecking order. Seven 719-24-7-1313. Take your thoughts on Team USA. How excited are you for the Olympics? Simone Biles is going to be back in the mix. U.S. soccer has both of its teams competing, which hasn't been the case recently. Then you have basketball, where you have this stacked roster. The old guard with the new wave in the NBA. And then you have the women's team, which, of course, we know what would enhance the team even more, the interest level in the women's team even more. But that's, that's over with. That's done. That's already, we know that situation. I'd be curious how Olympic City, USA is feeling about the games. We still have a few weeks, right? We'll be here before you know it. Want to take a moment to tell you about QC Kinetics. If you haven't heard of QC Kinetics, they are the nation's leader in advanced regenerative medicine. Now, I am not a doctor. I am not a medical professional. They are. So I will allow them, when you go in for a free consultation, for them to more in depth explain what it is that they do. But what I can tell you, what I am qualified to tell you, is that essentially they accelerate your own body's healing properties. They harness the power of your own body to heal itself. Now, they give it a little boost. They try to help you out a little bit with that, but it's you. It's your body's own ability to heal itself that they use to treat that arthritic joint pain, maybe that you're dealing with in your knees, your hips, your back, or your shoulder. They have tens of thousands of patients across the country, a lot of them right here in Colorado Springs, that are achieving some pretty great results. So if you've gone down the road of surgery or drugs, or maybe you've been told those are your only options, maybe take a beat. Just go into QC Kinetics, see what they have to say. It's a free consultation. And if that joint pain has been really bothering you, isn't it worth at least that free consultation? 719-347-1988. That's 719-347-1988. QC Kinetics, 719-347-1988. National Tax Advisory Service. Drive Time Sports, Ryan Kaufman with you on this Tuesday. Happy to have you. Whether you're listening on air, online, or through the Extra Sports 1300 app, or maybe you're watching the show on our social media platforms, Facebook, X, YouTube, Instagram, the handle all the same at Extra Sports 1300. If you'd like to discuss any of what I have discussed today, we'll discuss in this final hour, or you just have some topic that you'd like to broach, maybe this list of best television shows ever that is making the rounds. Actually, we'll talk about that because I've looked at this list. I don't like this list. 719-247-1313 is the text and the phone line for your added convenience right now. Here are the three stories that are driving the show. All right, story number one is it's not news, really, but it is a story, and it's a developing story, and that is the fact that Jamal Murray reportedly is not going to sign his extension with the Denver Nuggets until at least after the Olympics are over in August. And I have heard this question asked on a national level multiple times now. And it started with Brian Windhorst. Why hasn't Jamal Murray signed his extension? And the simple answer is it's maybe not an extension as we think it is. Right? So many of these max extensions, it's just like it's a rite of passage. It's just kind of the next thing. It's not even a thought. It's kind of like when these NFL teams pay their quarterbacks. It's like, it's going to happen. You can quarrel with the idea. You can debate whether someone deserves it, but it's going to happen. Jared Goff's going to get paid. Trevor Lawrence is going to get paid. Dak Prescott's going to get paid by someone. It's going to happen, and you could rage against it. You could fight against it. Nope, he's the next guy. Extension. And in the NBA, it's even more rubber stamped. Like, do you have an all-NBA or all-star game? No. Okay, you get this much. Do you have one of those things? Yes, you get this much. Sign here. I think that there is a bit of, I don't want to say hedging, and Ryan Blackburn does a terrific job of covering the Denver Nuggets and has for a number of years. He's saying that all that has been presented is a framework for a max extension, which may mean that there are some other little pieces to it that aren't the same as other extensions. Well, why would this be? And I don't know what they are. I don't know if it's a years thing, if it's incentives, whatever it is. It doesn't matter that much. It doesn't matter certainly more than why. Right? Whatever they're going to put in the contract or whatever type of extension they're offering them is secondary to why the Nuggets feel it necessary to not have a ready-made boilerplate max NBA extension that so many stars get on a year-to-year basis, why they don't feel like that same framework, that same verbiage should be in this contract. And it's because they're a bit hesitant. Right? Look at Jamal Murray's pass. And none of this has to do with Jamal Murray, the player. It goes back to the criticism that Calvin Booth and Michael Malone, or the challenge. I don't want to say it is criticism, but I think they were trying to do more of to challenge him. Challenge him to be more healthy. Challenge him to come back sooner from injuries. Not sooner in a reckless way, but get your body right quicker. But you look at Jamal Murray since the last extension he signed. Okay? Amazing in the bubble. Then he tears his ACL. 2 postseasons. Gone. They gave him the opportunity to come back. Just about a calendar year after he tore his ACL. He felt like he wasn't right. Okay, so now it's 2 postseasons wasted. With, by the way, a reigning MVP on your roster. And then everything clicks. Everything works. He's right. He's healthy. And the Nuggets just dominate throughout the NBA playoffs on their way to a title. And then this year, we see a Jamal Murray who clearly wasn't 100%, who they couldn't rely on game in and game out for that reason. And maybe to a lesser degree, somebody who let all of that stuff kind of get to him. And then he throws a heat pack and a referee. I'm not saying the heat pack is what brought this all on, but it's just, you haven't been able to rely on Jamal Murray year in and year out. That's just facts. Whether that's his fault or not, you just can't. You haven't been able to. Can you in the future? I think the Nuggets would love to see what Jamal Murray did this season to maybe feel like he listened to him, that he took that challenge to heart, that he used it in a productive way, and he's healthy and he plays 82 games and he's a beast in the postseason like he was last year, and the Nuggets win another title, they'll be happy to say, all right, forget all these other stipulations. Boom. Full on max contract. Let's do it because you answered the bell. But just look to Dallas on the football side on why that's a bad idea. Right? Because feelings get really hurt. People get angry. Cowboys seem to be willing to run that risk with Dak Prescott. I don't think that the Nuggets are as willing to do that. I think they do want to get a deal done before this upcoming season starts, but they want to protect themselves a little bit. This shift to the second apron has forced the Nuggets. I don't want to say forced. The Nuggets have chosen, let's use the right words here. They have chosen, there is nothing keeping them from blasting through the second luxury tax apron. They choose not to, and they have their reasons, and I'm not here to debate whether the reasons are good or bad, but this is a choice the Nuggets are making. They're choosing to play under the apron. And locking in Jamal Murray makes it more difficult for them to stay under that. And if he is hurt again, then you don't have the flexibility to go out and make another move. Right? If you're over the second apron, you got to be dollar for dollar. You can't dump contracts, all this kind of stuff. This is them thinking in the new NBA, but this is also based on what Jamal Murray's tenure in Denver has been. I think that the Nuggets are right to do this. But I also think Jamal Murray's probably not pleased with it and is probably not eager to sign whatever contract is in front of him. And even if this thing was only slightly different than a full-on max extension, Do you think that Jamal Murray heard what Calvin Booth and Michael Malone said? Think that bothered him? You've seen Jamal Murray's probably his whole career. Doesn't he feel like a guy that could be a bit bothered by that? Now, he usually uses criticism or pressure or anything like that and channels it and performs incredibly well. But that doesn't mean he's not upset about it. So I can understand why the Nuggets are maybe trying to put some things in there that will protect them moving forward. But I can also see why maybe more of the holdup is on Jamal Murray's end, and he kind of wants to make them sweat a little bit. Because I don't think he's happy with what he heard. I think he took that personally, which he has every right to because they were absolutely talking about him. I don't think this is at a point where Jamal Murray's days in Denver are up and he's going to get traded tomorrow. But this is not, everything's not peachy. Okay? At the very least, there's a negotiation going on. And this time last year, you wouldn't even thought there would be that. But things change, both with Jamal Murray and the NBA as a whole. So don't expect a deal to get done, at least until after the Olympics. And then we'll see. Story number 2 today. Speaking of the Olympics, Joel Embiid is playing for Team USA. Nikola Jokic, as you know, is playing for Team Serbia. They happen to be playing each other in the first game of the tournament. So Troy Rank, someone that you probably know very well here in Colorado, follow his work, asked Joel Embiid in Vegas if he's looking forward to playing Nikola Jokic on the Olympic stage. And his retort was, I don't care about Jokic. Of course, many people lopped off the quote right there, ran with it, printed out graphics and all sorts of stuff. And he said it, and I do think there was a little bit of legitimate emotion given what it's been like in the Embiid versus Jokic world for like the last 3 years. Right? He's over this. I'd love to see somebody in Serbian media ask Nikola Jokic just to compare and contrast. My guess is Nikola Jokic does not do anything other than say and compliment Embiid and then talk about wanting to win gold for Serbia being his primary goal. So I do think there's some legitimate emotion, not anything necessarily against Jokic, just I've been asked enough questions about him versus me, and I'm done with it. But then if you got the full quote, he then goes on to say, all I'm worried about is my national team and winning a gold medal, which you should. This stage should not be about your own personal vendettas against an NBA rival of yours. It shouldn't be about proving that you, above everyone else, are the man. It should be about bringing home a gold medal. And yes, as Anthony Edwards showed, a lot of these players believe that they could be the best player on this team, but it's still about winning a gold medal. So I don't have a problem with what Joel Embiid said. I think it was the right thing to say, but I do think you got some real emotion there at the beginning where he says, I don't care about Jokic. It's not Nikola Jokic the person, it's Embiid versus Jokic the conversation. But they will go up against one another in just a couple of weeks' time. And it will be very awkward for Nuggets fans. Story number 3 today, Big 12 Media Day. Days, it's plural. It's not just one day. And when you have more than 12 teams in the Big 12, you need more than one day for people to cover them. But Brett Yormark, the commissioner of the league, had a lot of very glowing things to say about the conference that he has put together. But he said that no doubt they are one of the best 3 conferences in America. And he said that the Big 12 is the deepest of the conferences. And he's probably right. But the Big 12 is not inherently better than the Big 10 or the SEC. But they are deeper because they're not, you don't have these dominant teams at the top. Utah has been the class of the Pac-12 for a few years now, but they're not Alabama, they're not Georgia, they're not Ohio State, they're not Michigan. Okay, so top to bottom, there is more. I expect there to be more parity in the Big 12 than I would expect in the Big 10 or the SEC, where the bottom of those conferences is not great, and the top is, well, those are your national championship contenders. So I think Brett Yormark is right to tout that. But just know why. It's because top to bottom, you know, they don't match up. But that will lead to the Big 12 being more intriguing, I think, than the Big 10. Because I just think there's so many different possibilities, and a team that you feel a certain way about could probably move up or down 3 or 4 places in the Big 12. I think it's going to be crazy. I think it's going to be a crazy year in the Big 12. And while I probably put Kansas State, Oklahoma State, and Utah as kind of that's the top tier, one of those teams, a couple of those teams could get knocked off. And then you, even if they can't, you look at 4 through like 12, you could draw them out of a hat and it'd be just as good of a prediction as the media poll did last week. It's going to be a fun year in the Big 12 for sure. And again, most of the conversation, and it's already started at Big 12 Media Days, is certainly about a team in Boulder. 719-247-1313. Speaking of Big 12 Media Days, I was with Mike Gundy a little bit on his handling of the Ollie Gordon situation, and now I am very much not. And I will tell you what led to my change of heart and take your thoughts as well. 719-247-1313. The best pro rodeo cowboys and cowgirls from the U.S., Canada, and Mexico are right here in Colorado Springs all this week. And with over $1 million in payouts, they'll be riding to win. There's no better place to be this week than the NFR Open at the Pikes Peak or Bust Rodeo. Get your tickets now at pikespeakorbust.org. Excuse me. So I was looking at something else, web, and said .com, and I read .com. pikespeakorbust.org. So I said earlier, Mike Gundy said he wasn't going to suspend his star running back, Ollie Gordon, for his arrest under suspicion of drunk driving from last week because he is an employee and he will do his job. And what he said was, you know, he's going to have to come out here and he called it face the truth. I think most people would say face the music. And Ollie Gordon did talk to the media today at Big 12 Media Days and discussed his error in judgment and everything like that. And I thought I would have still thought a suspension would be warranted. But I do like the idea of making him come out and discuss it, because if he were an NFL player, which is what all these guys are trying to be, and they're kind of quasi NFL players, quasi professionals, because they're being paid so much money, they should answer for it. So I'm like, I like that. I still think a suspension would be warranted, because if this were the NFL, and we've seen it, like we all quarrel with the length of these suspensions, but these guys, Rashee Rice will be suspended. These guys are getting suspended. So I think it would be warranted in Ollie Gordon's case. But then I have to like completely break away from Mike Gundy, because in another interview today with the Big 12 Network, he said, and I quote, "I looked it up on my phone. What would be the legal limit? 2 or 3 beers or 4? I'm not justifying what Ollie did. I'm telling you what decision I made. Well, I thought I've probably done that 1,000 times in my life." Shh. Don't say those kinds of things publicly. Because you essentially are. Like he with all due respect, and then you go on to trash the person you're talking about. Like he said, I'm not trying to justify it, but I've done it 1,000 times, and it doesn't take that much to be technically over the legal limit. Don't do that. Even if you have, you don't say that. You're the leader of a football team. You don't say that. What are we doing here? Yeah, I've done that probably 1,000 times. Awesome. Thanks for sharing, Mike Gundy. So, yeah, no, I can't agree with anything Mike Gundy says anymore. He screwed it up. So this list came out, and this is not sports related, but dang it, I want to talk about it. I don't even know where this came from. As many things on the internet, it just appears. The algorithm finds it and puts it in front of you because the algorithm is wise. The algorithm knows all. And a list like this would be exactly what I would want to see. And the algorithm provided. And I will share it with you. So I don't know who aggregated all this, but they took like Rotten Tomatoes, they took IMDb, they took all of these sites that rate all these television shows, and they averaged them out or whatever and compiled a list of the greatest TV shows of all time, the best TV shows of all time. And I hate this list. There are 2 reasons why I hate this list. One, because some of the shows that I love the most are not nearly high enough. And there are too many shows that I have not seen. For example, my favorite show of all time is The Office. It's my favorite. And I understand it's a comedy, it's a sitcom, it's not going to rank as high as some of these other higher production dramatic shows. I get that. But you're telling me The Office is the 17th best TV show all time? Get out of here. The only way I'm going to say this, and I don't care. And it's a biased opinion, but it's the correct opinion. The Office is better than Friends. It is. It's better than Friends, and people just need to admit it. I can accept a little bit that The Office doesn't rank. I mean, some of these dramas, The Office should rank higher, but at least almost all of these shows are like, HBO, AMC, like high production, Netflix, bigger budgets, better cast, and dramatic, and they're a little bit more considered art than a sitcom would be. All I ask is that The Office is number one when it comes to sitcoms. That's all I ask. And Friends is above it. And that bothers me. Okay? Here's the other thing that bothers me, maybe more so than The Office, being where it is. Do you know where Seinfeld is? 30th. Seinfeld is below Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and I love It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Seinfeld is a better show than Always Sunny in Philadelphia. And again, Seinfeld, greater than Friends. Do you know where Curb Your Enthusiasm is on this? I don't even see it. I don't even see it. And in my advanced age, I have come to realize that Curb is actually probably better than Seinfeld. Now, maybe it has to do with, your taste and how many F words you can take in one sitting. But I will tell you, I'm watching Seinfeld the other night, and it's the Faking It episode. Okay? Just because, and they mention multiple times what is being faked. So they kind of joke around it, right? They're a little tactful with it, whereas Curb would just come out and get into the gory details of it all. But let's not pretend Seinfeld was this innocent and holy family, wholesome, appropriate show. But yes, I understand Curb takes it to another level. Curb is better than Seinfeld. Okay? And then Office would be number one. Not Friends. Friends would be below It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. It would be very far down my list. My son keeps trying to bring up references from Friends because he likes Friends, and I tell him just stop. I'm no more mean to my child than I am when he tries to bring up Friends. I've watched the show. I don't like it. I don't get the appeal. I don't like any of the characters. Friends is very far down on the list for me. Not even on the list. It doesn't even deserve an honorable mention or to be listed on there. But here's the other part. There are so many of these shows that I have never seen. And this bothers me. It bothers me that I have not seen a lot of these shows because it makes me feel insecure that I actually, even though I gave a very impassioned speech there and made a case that Friends should be buried or taken completely off the list of best TV shows ever. And Office should be number one, and Curb should be somewhere on this list, but I think should be higher than Seinfeld, and Seinfeld should be higher on this list. I actually wonder if I know good television at all. Here's the list, because that's what you care more about. Number one is Breaking Bad. Okay, I wouldn't rank it number one, but obviously Breaking Bad was an amazing show. Okay, cool. Game of Thrones would probably be one of my favorite shows of all time. Love Game of Thrones. No, I have not seen the House of Dragon. Haven't even tried it. Probably should. I guess I'm not less of a fan because I haven't watched. But after my Queen of Dragons, and is this cover your ears? Spoiler alert. After a certain character from Game of Thrones was killed, I was like, I'm out. But anyway, Game of Thrones, fantastic show. Chernobyl, I've seen it advertised a lot, and I probably should watch it. I haven't. Sopranos was a little bit before my time in being able to watch completely inappropriate shows, and I didn't have HBO for much of my life. I could acknowledge that Sopranos, from what I haven't watched the entire series, but from what I've seen, very good show. Band of Brothers, I don't like anything wartime, so that wouldn't be for me. The Wire's phenomenal. Better Call Saul, never got into. Stranger Things, haven't watched a minute of it. Sherlock, Peaky Blinders. I've been wanting to get into Peaky Blinders, and I just haven't. I do like, though, that House is on this list. I think House was an amazing show. I think I've watched that show beginning to end twice. Love House. Succession, which I love, and I miss every day of my life. I miss Succession so much. That's 18th. Mad Men seems a little bit low at 21. So the list is Breaking Bad 1, then Game of Thrones, Chernobyl, Sopranos, Band of Brothers, The Wire, Better Call Saul, Stranger Things, Sherlock, and Peaky Blinders. The Boys is on this list. I almost feel like, you know what would be better if there was dramatic and comedic. Maybe that would be better. Because if I were doing comedies, then I would go Office 1, Curb 2, Seinfeld 3, Parks and Rec 4, Arrested Development 5. And then if I were doing dramatic, I'd probably go Game of Thrones, Succession, I'd have to think about that one. The Boys would be somewhere on that list. And House. Boys, House. And I have to think of a fifth one. Dexter. Where's Dexter? Dexter's a show that should be on here. Hannibal's on here. Why isn't Dexter on here? And where's Entourage? Hate this list. I do. I hate it. So many things that I have not seen make me question my reality as far as whether I actually know what good television is. And then also, I hate some of these rankings that the shows I do like are so far down on the list. Take your thoughts. 719-247-1313. I may make the whole show about this. I may have to sit down and map out a list, and I'll present it tomorrow. Next bracket, Goat of Goats television show. Nope, we don't have enough time. Olympics, training camp, don't have enough time. By the way, if you missed it, Michael Jordan ended up being named our GOAT of GOATs, which was my prediction from the outset. So thank you very much. Got 57% of the vote over Muhammad Ali, in case you missed when I mentioned that yesterday. 709-247-1313. Tell me I'm wrong about this TV list. I should have devoted more time today to this list of the top 100 television shows of all time. It is a perfect summer conversation, even though this is a sports show. But I saw it and I wanted to immediately discuss it because there are so many flaws in this thing. Couple of your texts from the 719. You are way off. MASH is easily the GOAT of sitcoms, if not the GOAT of all TV. Come on. MASH isn't... Like, here's the thing. I've barely seen any of the top 20 on this list. So, certainly at 39 years old, MASH is not one that has been... I've seen episodes. Obviously, MASH probably wouldn't... If I really sat down and watched it, I probably wouldn't like MASH. Probably not. But here's the thing. MASH isn't even on here. Like, some of these shows, I can look at and say, even if I've seen only a couple of episodes, I can look at them and say, okay, I understand why they're on this list. Okay, just because they're not my taste doesn't mean I can't appreciate how good of a show it is. Like, just for instance, Band of Brothers. Again, I don't like, Saving Private Ryan. I don't like the war stuff. I really don't. Some more satirical type movies, like the Ungentlemanly Warfare that just came out. Like, that's a war movie, but like the heavy, like Band of Brothers, Saving Private, I can't. And I love Christopher Nolan, and I can't watch, what's the movie that he has? I just can't. But I understand. I can acknowledge that Band of Brothers is probably one of the greatest shows of all time. MASH isn't even on here. That would be one where I'm like, of course MASH is on here. It's not. So even though you and I disagree with MASH as far as being the GOAT, we can acknowledge that it's ridiculous that MASH isn't. Is MASH better than... Well, and here's the problem. This does heavily skew towards dramas. Right? But is MASH better than Justified? I would think so. That's the 50th one. That's number 50. MASH isn't better than Justified? I know Timothy Oliphant is dreamy, but come on. MASH has got to be better than that show. They should have just dropped, and I know it's not, the integrity of the list would be compromised if, for instance, Friends was the 15th best show of all time based on all of these websites' ratings for it. And then they just dropped it because they're like, we're only doing dramas. But feels like there are so many great comedies. And just the era, too. I mean, there's nothing... Like, the oldest shows on here are like from 1999. I guess Seinfeld, 89. Like, there's a couple generations of television that aren't even on this thing. So it's a stupid list. Stupid. Another text in, hands down, Sopranos and Breaking Bad for drama. Comedy has to be Seinfeld, with The Office a close second, in my opinion. And I can get on board with that. Sopranos, really good. Just, I didn't really catch it. All these shows, all the shows that I mentioned, I went through it. Now, I got to Game of Thrones a little bit late, but I was still in it while it was going on. Sopranos, I missed. When I've gone back and I've watched it, what I've seen, I've liked. But I can acknowledge that Sopranos is one of the best shows ever. And Breaking Bad was great. I should probably have it higher on my list. Another one that I think is too low, True Detective. Now, is it because the new season with Jodie Foster isn't that good? And I'll admit I haven't seen it. But the Woody Harrelson, Matthew McConaughey, even the season with Rachel McAdams was phenomenal. And True Detective is 47th. You know what would have been better timing if this would have come out like right after Florida won the Stanley Cup? Because now I don't have the time to invest. I'm already in on The Boys. So I got to see that through till the end, but that's a once a week thing. So I can fit it in my schedule a little bit better. Mandalorian, my son would be heartened to know that's on the list. I hate this list. And I guess it's not so much like the top 5, but it's just the omissions and the ranking of the comedy shows are completely out of whack. I'm surprised Suits isn't on here. Everyone's like now going back and watching Suits and says it's this great show. But again, the list, if you're curious: Breaking Bad, Game of Thrones, Chernobyl, AMC, HBO, Sopranos, HBO, Band of Brothers, HBO, The Wire, HBO, Better Call Saul, AMC, Stranger Things, Netflix, Sherlock. Forgot what Sherlock was on, and then Peaky Blinders is Netflix. That's one that on this list where I'm like, I got to start watching it. I got to start watching Thomas Shelby. I hear too many good things. I don't know how I'm going to fit it in, though. It's not. I just don't have the time. I'm a busy professional. And I put professional in quotes. Somebody's got to do this for movies, right? Maybe that's what I'll get ahead on. Is find somebody that put out a list like this when it comes to movies. Yeah, in front of that. Because if there are movies that I have not seen, then I can much easier go back and watch those than to undertake watching the entire series of Band of Brothers. Do want to get back to sports in the last couple of minutes here. So Wimbledon is going on. And this feels relevant for a couple reasons. One, because we just had our GOAT of GOATs, and Novak Djokovic was voted on by you as the GOAT when it comes to men's tennis. Well, the GOAT kind of gave it to the fans a little bit last night after he advanced in Wimbledon.
To all those people that have chosen to disrespect the player, in this case me, have a good night. Good night. Very good night.
Now, I didn't do a good enough job setting that up because you're like, what is that about? He was playing against Holger Rune. And even the next part of that clip, if I were to extend it out, was the commentator or the interviewer saying, well, they were cheering for Rune. And Djokovic is like, no, I've been around. I know what they're doing. They're using his name as a way to boo me. That was like, that should have been a mic drop. Djokovic should have said what you just heard and then walked away. Because the back and forth with the reporter and everything like that, it just kind of, that was a mic drop. Right? I'll tell you where he should have dropped the mic.
To all those people that have chosen to disrespect the player, in this case me, have a good night.
Boom. Right there. Walk away. So, Novak Djokovic is wise to your tricks, fans at the All England Club. He knows what you were doing. You weren't rooting for Holger Rune. Half the people there didn't even know who Holger Rune was. So, later today, I don't know. They're like in the future in England. I don't know what day it is or time it is there. But anyway, there's a picture that is surfaced and is obviously popping up on my timeline on social media because Novak Djokovic is posing in a picture with Russell Westbrook. Why is that relevant? Well, because it is a poorly kept secret that the Nuggets would very much like to have Russell Westbrook on their basketball team. And depending on who you believe in terms of reporting, Jokic is on board. I don't expect Jokic to ever tell the front office, go get this guy. He's not LeBron. But if they came to him and said, what do you think about Russell Westbrook? He'd probably shrug and go, he's a good player. Well, Novak Djokovic just so happens to be BFFs with Nikola Jokic. So, is this Russell Westbrook's way, trying to force his way to Denver? Or to just, in code, tell Joker, don't worry, I'll be there soon? Russell Westbrook posing with Novak Djokovic. So perhaps Jokic's current BFF posing with his potentially new BFF. Find out. But that would require Calvin Booth to do more than one thing a week, which I'm not entirely sure that he can do. That's an unnecessary shot to end the show. But that is where we will end it. Appreciate you joining me for this show. Appreciate the interaction. Be back again to do it tomorrow, 3 o'clock. And maybe Greg Berhalter will be fired by then. U.S. is supposed to make a decision tomorrow. So talk to you then.